the act of worshipping the dead, or worshipping the grave, or invoking the dead, conducted by Muslims, has become rampant in some Muslim country. This is a major issue in Islam, due to the fact that the act of invoking the dead is an act of shirk, or associating Allah with others. Shirk is the worst crime in the religion of Islam.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
In this video, we are going to present evidences found in the Quran and found in the Hadith, which strongly indicate that invoking the dead is indeed an act of shirk, which is a polytheistic act.
Before that, please support us through Patreon, or PayPal, or the purchasing of our book on Amazon. Find the link in the description.
This video is divided into 5 sections. First, definition of shirk as explained in the Quran. Second, the fact that invocation is an act of worship as told by the Prophet. Third, pagan rituals or polytheistic customs as explained in the Quran. Fourth, the understanding of the companions of the Prophet as recorded in Hadith. Fifth, invocation upon other than Allah is tremendous error, and the warning of Allah as mentioned in the Quran. First, let us discuss the origin of term shirk. This is how the term shirk is written in Arabic. The term shirk linguistically means to associate, or to make associates, or to make partner. The term shirk is mentioned in multiple verses of the Quran. For instance, it can be found in the Quran, chapter 72, verse 20, as follows. Quote, "Say, O Muhammad, I only invoke my God, and I do not associate anything with him." End quote. From this Quranic verse, it can be clearly understood that the term shirk means to associate anything with Allah, or to make partners or associates to Allah. From this verse, it can be also understood that to invoke others besides Allah means to make others as partner of Allah. In other words, to invoke anything besides Allah, such as the grave, the dead, the idols, etc., is indeed an act of shirk, or associating others with Allah. In fact, Allah, the creator of universe, called those which they invoke besides Allah as my associates, or my partners. This is mentioned in the Quran, chapter 18, verse 52, as follows. Quote, "In that day, Allah will say, call my partners, whom you claimed. Then they will invoke those who they used to invoke." End quote. From this Quranic verse, it can be understood that invoking anything other than Allah is in fact making something as a partner of Allah. In other words, it is an act of shirk, or associating Allah with others, or a polytheistic ritual. Invocation is an act of worship. In this section, we are going to discuss the fact that invocation is an act of worship, and worship must be attributed to Allah alone. Otherwise, it could be categorized as an act of shirk, or associating Allah with others. The fact that invocation is an act of worship is based on Hadith number 3247 from Sunan Tirmidhi collection. The Hadith is classified as authentic by Shaykh al-Albani, and it goes as follows. Quote, Al-Nu'man ibn Bashir, a companion of the Prophet, reported as follows. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said the following. Invocation is worship itself. Then, the Prophet recited the following Quranic verse. Your God says, "Invoke me. I will respond to you. Verily, those who dissatisfied with worshipping me alone will enter the hellfire in humiliation." End quote. Please note that the Quranic verse mentioned in this hadith is verse number 60 in chapter 40 of the Quran. The fact that invocation is an act of worship is also supported by another Quranic verse. That is, verse number 56 in chapter 6, as follows. Quote, "Say, O Muhammad, indeed, I have been forbidden to worship those you invoke besides Allah." End quote. In this Quranic verse, the term worship and invoke are used in the same context. From these three evidences, it can be clearly understood that invocation is an act of worship. Moreover, the act of worship must be attributed to Allah alone. This is stated in the Koran, chapter 18, verse 110, as follows. Quote, "Whoever hope for the meeting with his God, let him do righteous deed, and let him not associate his God with anything in the worship." End quote. As can be understood from this verse, the act of worship must be attributed to Allah alone. If an act of worship is attributed to other than Allah instead, that becomes the act of shirk, or associating Allah with others. Therefore, invocation must only be attributed only to Allah as well, due to the fact that invocation is an act of worship, and invoking other than Allah, whether it is an idol, or a grave, or a dead man, can be categorized as an act of shirk, or associating others with Allah. Polytheistic customs. The act of invoking other than Allah is not a new phenomenon. This can be observed from the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Back then, the majority of the people of Mecca worshipped Allah, and, in the same time, they also worshipped others besides Allah, such as idols, graves, dead men, and even objects like animals, fruits, and vegetables. Therefore, Allah, the creator of universe, commanded Prophet Muhammad to stop such pagan rituals, or the polytheistic customs conducted by the people of Mecca. This can be observed in the following Quranic verses. Quote, "If you asked them, who created the heavens and the earth, they would surely say, Allah. Then, say, O Muhammad. Then, have you considered what you invoke besides Allah? Say, O Muhammad. Have you considered your partners, whom you invoke, besides Allah? Show me what they have created from the earth. Do they have partnership with Allah in the creation of the heavens?" End quote. From these Quranic evidences, it can be understood that, back then, the people of Mecca worshipped Allah, and, in the same time, they worshipped also, or, they invoked also, other besides Allah. Even though, they fully understood that, what they invoked, is not God, and, do not have divinity, whatsoever. This is, polytheistic custom, at its best. The understanding of the companions of the Prophet. In this section, let us see how the companions of the Prophet understood issues regarding invoking other than Allah, as recorded in Hadith. We are going to present two instances of the example of the companion, which are recorded in the Hadith. The first hadith recorded a situation which happened after the demise of the Prophet, where a prolonged drought occurred in the city of Medina. During that time, the Muslim community was under the leadership of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph, or successor to the Prophet. During this difficult time, the companions of the Prophet did not invoke the Prophet, who already dead, nor they invoked the grave of the Prophet. However, they asked the help of Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet, to invoke Allah, the creator of universe, on behalf of the Muslim community, instead. The Hadith is Hadith number 1010, from Sunan al-Bukhari collection. It says as follow. Quote. Anas ibn Malik, a companion of the Prophet, narrated as follows. Whenever drought threatened them, Umar ibn al-Khattab used to ask Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib to invoke Allah for rain. Umar ibn al-Khattab used to say, O Allah, we used to ask our Prophet to invoke you for rain, and you would bless us with rain. Now, we ask his uncle to invoke you for rain. O Allah, bless us with rain. So, it would rain. End quote. From this hadith, it can be clearly understood that to invoke other than Allah is totally prohibited in the religion of Islam. This prohibition includes to invoke the prophets, to invoke the dead, and to invoke the grave. Next, let us see the second hadith. The hadith mentioned about how the companions recognized those who invoked other than Allah. The second hadith is Hadith number 4002 from Sunan Nasa'i collection, and classified as authentic by Darussalam. The hadith says as follows. Quote. Sa'id ibn Jubair narrated as follows. Abdurrahman ibn Abi Layla told me to ask Abdullah ibn Abbas, a companion of the Prophet, regarding the following Quranic verse. Those who do not invoke with Allah another deity. Abdullah ibn Abbas replied as follows. This was revealed concerning the people of Shirk. End quote. Please notice that the Quranic verse is verse number 68 of chapter 25. From this hadith, it can be understood that the companions of the Prophet understood that people who invoke other than Allah as the people of Shirk, or people who associate other with Allah. Invocation upon other than Allah is tremendous error, and the warning of Allah. Allah, the creator of universe, stated in the Koran that the act of invoking other than Allah is an extreme error, and the people who invoke other than Allah are the most astray people. This can be understood from the following Quranic verses. Quote. He invokes that which neither harms him nor benefits him instead of Allah. That is the extreme error. Who is more astray than he who invokes besides Allah? If you invoke them, they do not hear your supplication. And even if they heard, they would not respond to you. Those whom they invoke besides Allah do not possess power of intercession. End quote. As can be understood from these Quranic verses, the people who invoke other than Allah are in a tremendous error, and ones of the most astray people. The objects, or dead men, which they invoke, do not have any ability whatsoever. Those objects, or those dead men, cannot even hear the invocation. Moreover, it should be noticed that the spirit of dead people do not stay on the earth. This can be understood from the following Quranic verses. Quote. When death comes to one of them, he says, "My Lord, send me back, so that I might do righteousness in that which are left behind." No. It is only a word he is claiming. Behind them is a barrier until the day they are resurrected. End quote. From all these evidences, we can understood that invoking other than Allah, including the grave and the dead men, is an act of shirk, or associating Allah with other. We must avoid this act at all cost. Let us listen to the warning of Allah, mentioned in the Quran, for the people who associate Allah with anyone or anything. Quote, "Indeed, Allah does not forgive association with him. However, he forgives what is less than that, for whom he wills." End quote.
والله أعلم بالصواب.
Allah knows best about what is right. If you want more of these video, please subscribe and push the like button and the notification button. Please support our channel by buying our books, shown in the description below. Please support our effort through Patreon and PayPal. The links are provided in the description below. To learn about Islam systematically, please buy our books, or visit our website. Our books can be obtained in both electronic medium, and as printing books. You can also present the book as gifts for your beloved ones. Thank you very much for watching. And, peace be upon those who follow the guidance.
والسلام على من اتبع الهدى.